Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Brain Science Behind Vroom and Vroom's Brain Building Tools webinar. My name is Patience Hill, and I work at Child Care Wherever America on the Vroom partnership. We also have Candy Novak with us today, and I'll let Candy introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candy, and I'm also with Child Care Wherever America, and I'm the Technical Assistant Specialist for the Child Care Wherever America Vroom Partnership Initiative.
Thank you, Candy. We ask that you please jot down any questions you may have during the webinar, and also you can email your questions to vroom@usa.childcareaware.org. So we know that brain building with children during their first 5 years gives us a strong base for lifelong learning. Vroom translates the leading research on early brain development into meaningful, actionable activities for families and children 0 through 5. After today's webinar, you will have a greater understanding of early brain development and the science behind Vroom, be knowledgeable of resources and tools that support early brain development and empower families, and you will also recognize that Vroom's free tips and resources are simple to use and can turn everyday moments and routines with children into learning moments. Now we'd like to start with a video from Vroom. As we watch this video, I invite you to think about your experience with children in your life and the everyday moments you share. We hope that everyone was able to view, that everyone has what it takes video, and we would like you to think about your experience as a caregiver. How are you feeling after watching the video? So we just want to pause and give you time to reflect on your experience as a caregiver and how you feel after watching this video about brain building moments. Now, Candy will talk more about the science on brain development.
Thanks, Patience. So for this next section, we're going to see what your brain science IQ is. To get us warmed up for this session, I'll read a series of true or false statements. They will be on the next slide, and I'll pause after each question for you to jot down your answers on a piece of paper. Then I'll provide you with the correct answers on the following slide. True or false? Let's look at the first one. At birth, the infant's brain is the most mature organ in the body. Number 2, true or false? A young child's brain develops gradually during the first 3 years of life. Number 3, how the baby's brain will develop its foundation for learning is sculpted by the relationships the baby experiences. Number 4, true or false? By the age of 5, children's brains have grown to 90% of full size. Number 5, we are born with the most brain synapses we will ever have. Number 6, true or false? A child's brain more than doubles in mass during the first year after birth and reaches 80% of adult size by 2 years of age. So let's review the answers for each statement. The first one, This is actually false. The brain is the most immature organ in the body at birth. Number 2, this one is also false. A young child's brain develops gradually during the first 3 years of life. It actually surges during this time period. In the first 2,000 days, or the first 5 years, the brain growth is very rapid. Number 3, this is true. Both positive and negative experiences define the quality of the child's early brain development. Number 4, this is also true. By the age of 5, children's brains have grown to 90% of the full size. Number 5, we are born with the most brain synapses we will ever have. This is false. Neurons, or what we call brain cells, make up the brain, and synapses are what happen when the brain cells connect. And these brain cell connections happen through experiences. This is building the pattern for learning. And the last one, this is true. A child's brain more than doubles in mass during the first year after birth and reaches 80% of its adult size by 2 years of age. And it actually reaches 85% of adult size by the age of 3. Now that you've learned some key facts about early brain development during our true-false game, let's talk a little bit more in detail about the actual architecture of the brain and how brains are built. Here you see a picture of a single neuron, or what we call a brain cell. And you can see the different parts of the brain cell. And I'm just going to share some key things about how the brain develops. We are born with the most brain cells that we will ever have. But what happens is when the brain grows and develops, this is happening when a connection is made between the brain cells, or between the neurons. And we call these connections brain synapses. Note in the picture that a synapse happens when the axon terminal and a dendrite come in contact. These brain cells are actually happening and stimulated during interactions with children. Scientists estimate that the brain makes 1 million neural connections each second from birth to age 3. That's a lot of connections happening. You may even imagine that these little sparks are firing inside their brains as they're learning. As the brain makes more connections, the neural connections build the brain. So the building of the brain and how the architecture happens is the brain is built from the bottom up, and it's built over time. For example, the sensory pathways, like for those for basic vision and hearing, are the first to develop. Then it's followed by early language skills, and then higher cognitive function, those higher thinking skills. So such things as problem solving and impulse control. The brain architecture is comprised of billions of connections between neurons across different areas of the brain. And we also, when we talk about brain architecture, we like to think about how the genes interact, the interactions of the genes and the experience, how that develops the brain as well. So genetics and experiences are key ingredients of how the brain is being developed. So cognitive, emotional, and social capacities are very closely intertwined throughout the life course. And we also need to think about toxic stress and how toxic stress can weaken the actual architecture of a developing brain and have a lifelong impact on the developing brain. For example, it could lead to problems in learning, behavior, and physical and mental health. So we're going to take a look at some neural connections, and so some connections and synapses across time from a newborn all the way up through age 6. So if we look at this slide that's showing some neural connections or synapses for a newborn, you can see the connections taking place. So right from birth, learning is happening. And then we look at 1 month of age, and you can see there's an increase in connections. And by 3 months, there's more. And look at 6 months. There are so many connections happening. And if you can imagine what children are doing at the age of 6 months, it will help you realize all those connections, why they are occurring. They're sitting up usually at this time. They're becoming more verbal. So there's a lot of things happening in their developing brains. And then we go on to 1 and 2 years, just more and more connections. And we also see some like thickening of those connections as well. So they're getting more dense. And 4. And then our last slide of 6 years, we notice a difference. So there's this process called pruning that is very essential and an important process in brain development. This process weeds out unnecessary connections and actually strengthens the important ones. Pruning is an essential and important part of brain development. We have attached a flyer from Vroom called The Brain Story to our webinar today, and this will help tell the story of brain development. So as you can see across time, from the newborn through 6, those synapses get stronger and more dense across time. So how do we know so much about early brain development? There has been a revolution in how we understand children's minds and their learning capacities. We now recognize that young children know, feel, and learn more than we have ever imagined. In laboratories at the University of Washington, known as iLabs, and around the world, children's natural curiosity and drive to learn is being uncovered in basic research studies. At iLabs at the University of Washington, there's a machine called the magnetoencephalography machine. We like to call it MEG or MAG. This is the only machine in the world that measures the human brain over time, beginning as young as 2 months. It can measure the brain activity as the child and the caregiver interact. It's recording the brain cells and interactions, and it looks at the increases in the brain mass over time. So we like this quote: if you change the beginning of the story, you change the whole story. Early brain development is critical.
Thank you, Candy. Now we're going to go deeper into the science behind Vroom. Science is the heart of Vroom. Leaders in neuroscience, psychology, behavioral economics, parenting, early childhood development, they all make up the brain trust for Vroom, and their remarkable work informs everything that we do. And through their research, we have learned babies are born with tremendous potential. They are wired to learn from day one. And the moments when we connect with our children, neural connections fire in the brain, as Candy had mentioned, taking away all the things we say and do. While genes make up the brain's blueprint, positive, supportive experiences with adults help a child's brain grow, and it's strong and flexible. And also, it makes families and caregivers a child's #1 brain builder. You are their #1 brain builder. Babies are born ready to learn, and caregivers, such as you all, already have what it takes to help them. The everyday moments spent with a child can help their brain grow strong, even a few minutes. So children love to learn from their caring adults in their life, such as their caregivers, their teachers, and time together gives them a strong start in life. Rather than telling caregivers what they should do, Vroom really wants to focus on what caregivers are already doing right. So our goal is to try to spark moments of joy and interaction as opportunities for learning. Small changes using everyday moments like mealtime and bath time in intentional ways to encourage more quality interactions with children. Vroom celebrates the powerful motivation that unites caregivers, and it's a sense of pride and resourcefulness to provide the best start in life for our children. So while being flexible and adaptable to meet the unique needs of the diverse groups in our communities, Vroom is there and Vroom is achievable within the reality of our caregivers' busy lives, and it doesn't require extra time or money, which is so important. We invest that Vroom and what we're already doing with children and into their daily routines. So it's ideal to brain build from birth, but it's never too late to start. So Mind in the Making and Vroom have come together, and they've partnered to create a culture shift in early learning. So let's look a little deeper into what brain building with Vroom is. So behind every Vroom tip, there's the brain science put into everyday language that we all understand, that parents understand, so we all know why it's important to build our children's brains. So both Vroom and Mind in the Making, they start with the adults in the life of a child and share 3 core scientific principles. We have positive adult-child relationships, back and forth interaction, and life skills that promote executive function. So let's dive a little deeper into these areas. Positive connections with caring adults help a child's brain grow strong and flexible. So humans are social beings. We're hardwired for relationships with others, and children learn in those relationships. So a child's first teacher is their mother, their father, or their caregiver. Babies, they're born seeking those connections. So an infant must be in a nurturing and affectionate relationship with a caring adult for that healthy social, emotional, cognitive, mental, and physical development. And for back and forth interactions or those conversations that we have with children build a child's brain in ways that help their learning, their health, and also their behavior, both now and of course in the future. Positive, supportive experiences in combination with those back and forth interactions that we have with children help support a safe and nurturing, predictable environment for our children. Building life skills like focus, self-control, problem solving, and taking on challenges in their early years help a child today and in their later life. Studies actually show that school readiness and success and better health, stable finances, and adulthood, they're all tied to having those good life skills. So what Vroom has done is they have taken the 3 scientific principles, the positive relationship, the back and forth interaction, and those executive function skills, and identified actions that make up a brain building moment. And you'll hear us say brain building moment often in reference to Vroom. And so what Vroom has done is created the 5 brain building basics, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And you can think of these as the ingredients for a brain building moment. Also, we know that we have our executive function skills based on those life skills we just talked about. So we have working memory, and that's really being able to keep information in mind in order for children to use it. Also, thinking flexibly, being able to adjust to those shifting needs and demands when there's those transitions in the classroom. Also, inhibitory controls, controlling those impulses and pausing and thinking before reacting. So what is Vroom? We talked about the science. Let's dig even further into Vroom as the initiative. So Vroom is an initiative to inform everyone that our child's first years are when they develop the foundation for all future learning. And it's really a mission to change the way we think about young children and how they learn and develop. It's also an outreach strategy to reach families where they are in a non-judgmental way, which is very important. We're not telling parents how to be a parent or what to do, but we're really encouraging those positive interactions that they're already doing with children. And same with caregivers. We really want to encourage those positive interactions in the classroom. Also, it's a source of the latest brain science, which we had mentioned earlier, and it helps to turn those everyday moments into those brain building moments. And so you'll keep hearing that a lot here with Vroom, and really boosting that early learning. As you can see, we have a child here, and they can learn about colors and textures just from going grocery shopping with their parents, which is an everyday moment. And it's really a family and community engagement outreach strategy to support parents and families in their roles as their child's first teachers. So a great way to connect with families outside of the classroom. And now we're going to go more into building brains with Vroom.
Thank you. So let's look at some brain building resources from Vroom. Children's brains have tremendous potential, and Vroom has developed resources and tools that are backed by science on early brain development that help parents and caregivers grow children's brains and help get them ready for school and for friends and for life. The brain building basics, which you see up above in this picture, encourage caregivers to build their child's brain by making eye contact, chatting from birth on, taking turns, stretching out moments, and following up with comments or questions. These are what Vroom calls the 5 brain building basics. And these 5 actions really help to grow a child's brain power. So Vroom tips expand on the brain building basics. The brain building basics are key ingredients of Vroom tips. There's a collection of over 1,000 Vroom tips, and this is really the cornerstone of the free Vroom tools and resources. Here's an example of a Vroom tip, which is just one of, as I mentioned, over 1,000 Vroom tips. Each tip really promotes brain development for children ages 0 to 5 on developing language, early literacy, early math skills, and executive function skills. The science behind the tips comes directly from Mind in the Making and the scientific advisors. Each tip is written to be age appropriate and does not require a lot of time or any money to complete. Most importantly, the tips are meant to be fun and to be joyful, and turning something that could be just ordinary and mundane or even chore-like into a very positive moment with children. So each tip really encourages interaction with children, and when children are having fun, those are the best learning moments. As you can see in this example of a Vroom tip, it's called Home Museum. It says, invite your child to find some special things and put them out like in a museum or store. Have them lead you through their collection. Ask them to share with you why the items are meaningful. Take turns choosing your favorite things to share with each other. And what's nice is for each tip, the science is shared with you. So there's the brainy background that really explains how this interaction builds children's brains. For this tip, the brainy background is, in this activity, your child's practicing important communication skills. Thinking about what to say and how to say it uses memory too. When you listen and share their words, feelings, and actions, you're also building a safe place for learning. So this is an example of how Vroom tips are structured. So in summary, Vroom tips give caregivers effective, easy ways to promote learning and to help bond with children. Vroom makes it easy for caregivers to create connections with children, and it helps caregivers turn everyday routines into brain-building moments with their children. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you a video of a Vroom tip. So when you're watching this video, think about what you notice in the video, and if you ever have any moments or activities like this in your own practice, in your classroom or in your home. Now please refer to the Setting the Table video. So that is what a Vroom moment looks like. Hopefully you were able to think about moments or activities in your own classroom or in your own homes of ways that you could reinforce and encourage moments like these. So here's another example of a Vroom tip. Most adults have had a moment when they have had time waiting with a child for a certain activity or during a certain transition. So I want you to take a moment and think about a time that you have waited on a child. This tip would support a transition or a waiting moment. So this tip, for example, is called Take Time to Watch. Take a minute today to watch your child. Pay attention to what they look at, how do they move, what do they sound like, what are they learning. And you can use tips like this or many other of the Vroom tips to really help during those times that you're waiting with a child. The goal of Vroom is to empower providers like yourself and organizations that support them to build community networks sharing Vroom with families. So you can now see for yourself how these Vroom tips work, how fun they are, and how easy to use Vroom tips can be. So after this webinar, I would encourage you to download the Vroom app. You can do this by visiting your app store on your phone and downloading the Vroom app. You can also visit vroom.org as a way to find other resources, to look at Vroom tips and their Vroom videos. Vroom tools and resources are always free. They're free for families, they're free for providers and communities. The app is just one of many tools they use to initiate positive engagement between caregivers and children. So you can go to vroom.org. You can also download, as I mentioned, the Vroom app on your phone. That way, every day, a tip would be delivered to your phone of something that you can do with children. And once again, it's free and it's embedded in everyday moments that you have with children. These are some other ways that you may also see Vroom. For example, through broadcasts such as Daniel Tiger, maybe through some community networks or community events. And also Vroom has partnered with Goya Cookies and Johnson & Johnson. So Vroom tips are displayed on the packaging of these two items as well. So Vroom partners come in many forms. The tips and content can be shared in many different ways, and we are all working together toward a common brain building goal. In some of the parts of the country, There's been some innovative partners as well. Families may find Vroom tips on walls or even mirrors too, as you see in this slide. All right, you can also learn more about Vroom and brain building resources by following Vroom on social media. You can follow them on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. They frequently will share Vroom tips on Facebook and other helpful information and brain building messages. So that's something that you can always share with the families that you are working with in your programs as well. So in summary, everyone has what it takes to be a brain builder. So we'd like to pause a moment, and we'd actually like to have you participate in writing in our chat box tonight. And just pause and reflect on something that was the most important thing that you heard in this webinar. So just take a brief moment to reflect on the information that has been presented about research on early brain development and the introduction to some of Vroom tools and resources. So what resonated the most with you? After you've decided what was the most important thing that you learned or what resonated the most for you, we invite you to write in the chat box what that was. Please share it with us. And these initial thoughts and ideas that you have about what you heard can serve as a springboard for more formal planning later on, or ways that you might introduce Vroom in your classroom or with your families. And if you would rather email us your comments about what the most important thing was, you can email us at vroom@usa.childcareaware.org. And we would like to acknowledge
Let's see, we have a comment from Jennifer. She said she likes the Vroom video, and it will definitely be useful in her work. Thank you, Jennifer. We also love the Vroom videos as well, and we love how they are not too long. They're very short and to the point, but they love how it displays a tip in action or just really tells us about the science behind Vroom and why it's so important for families and caregivers.
And we'd also like to share from Laureen, thank you, that the daily Vroom app will be great to pass along to families. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, and also to note, if a family doesn't have a smartphone, they can also get the Vroom tips through text. They can text the word Vroom, V-R-O-O-M, to 48258, and they can start receiving text messages with Vroom tips addressed to their child.
Okay, we'd like to share some future dates with you for upcoming webinars, and we'll be diving further into how Vroom can be embedded in child care programs and support work with families and children birth to 5. So there will be one on September 10th from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. and we will be talking specifically about engaging families in childcare programs. And then on September 12th, same time frame, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be talking in more details about making everyday moments in the classroom fun and engaging with science-based tools and resources. So we'll be talking about how Vroom can be integrated into the classroom and to help enhance children's learning in the classroom. If you have any questions for us, please email us. Once again, our email address is vroom@usa.childcareaware.org. We'd love to hear from you. And then we also wanted to share an evaluation with you. Your feedback is important to us, and as well as you'll receive a certificate for attending this webinar. An email will be following this webinar with the evaluation and the certificate attached. So we really appreciate your feedback once again through the evaluation, and you'll be able to receive that certificate for your participation. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. We hope to have you on our next webinars.